Alright, I've just went out there and got this one. This is the chemtrail aftermath. You can see on the date, March 22nd, from the front porch. This is part 2 of what I'm doing. This is in sterile water, just so you can see it. And I want to give me a glimpse of what's going on with this stuff. This is that white stuff that comes from the chemtrails. And I snatched this off the screen going on the inside. I want to see what this is going to do. Nasty. It's got the little white specks in it too. Little gunk on top. But that's okay. Anyway, this is part 1. March 22nd, 2013. Be back in a couple of days. Check this one. Take care. Alright, it's 11:40 at night. Eastern Standard Time. Still March 25th, 2013. Check this out. Look what we're doing. Wow. See? Same jar. Let me go around here so you can see the date. I don't want to disturb it. See? 22nd. Okay. Look at this. Wild. I'll turn it just a pinch. Wicked. See what it's doing? It's all collecting. Oh, and you just toward the top of the water you can see the strands. Okay. Just thought I'd bring this out. Okay. Alright. Take care. Test 4.
Okay, out there, YouTube land, here's a video that I challenge debunkers to try to debunk. What you're seeing right there is 2 chemtrail planes chasing after another plane. Here's a couple of French planes. These planes will show you how aerosols can be turned on and off. Very obvious here. The plane just turned on the aerosol spray. The other one had it on. The other 2 have nothing coming out at all. And this is obviously an aerosol of some kind. There, that plane turned it off. That plane turned it on. All 4 planes are flying. All 4 have an exhaust, yet only 2 of them alternately turn off and on. Now here is Skyriders. Okay, Skyriders spray in the sky. They spray words, things like that. But look, there is chemtrails. Some people think Skyriders can work, but other planes can't. It's just contrails, but no. All right, now here you've got 2 planes spraying, chasing another plane. The other plane is in the middle to the right a little bit. You can see it there. It's a small dot. Same speed. The altitude's probably exactly the same, or possibly the altitude of the plane that's not spraying anything is higher. Now, you know, a lot of people, pilots, everybody else will come on board and they'll say, well, it's just a contrail. It's just normal exhaust. Well, there you've got the plane stopped spraying right there, and the other plane continues to fly. Okay, Mr. Pilots and debunkers, where is that other plane? Did it just turn the engine off? I don't think so. It stopped spraying. Now here's the video again. It's chasing another plane. 2 planes are spraying. Another plane is in the middle. No exhaust, no spraying, nothing. How can you explain that, you pilots and debunkers out there? How can that plane in the middle fly without an exhaust, but the other 2 have an exhaust? I really don't. And then you can see how it started. So they started the spray right there. Does that mean that the temperature suddenly changed there? And Oh wait, okay, the temperature changed there. Oh wait, but the other plane's right at the same altitude and it's still spraying. No temperature change happened there. That other plane stopped spraying. Again, here it is. 3 planes, 2 are spraying, 1's not. There they go. Obvious. You can see the plane right there. Nothing's coming out of it. The exhaust is perfectly clear. The other 2 are spraying. It's not a contrail, people. Now you go down, you can see where they started to spray. Both those planes started to spray right there. Oh wait, and then you look up, that one stopped spraying. Or did it just turn its engine off? I like to see your comments down there, you pilots and debunkers. What happened with that? Okay, so obviously there's 2 chemtrail planes there.
Okay, welcome to the presentation. This is Tony Muga. You also know me as Hattrick Penry. I have a YouTube site and a WordPress blog site. And today I'm here to, as briefly as possible, show you this phenomena, which I think is pretty blockbuster, absolutely groundbreaking as far as the aerosol engineering and the drought in Florida, tying them together and proving that the aerosol engineering, all the spraying that we're seeing almost on a daily basis, especially during the time of years when it's supposed to be raining, all this is having an effect on the thunderhead thunderstorm development. And the sequence of pictures I'm going to show you is going to prove this. It's not an isolated thing. Now, my mom took these pictures. She lives on the 9th floor of an apartment building, so she has an advantageous view with which to take this kind of a picture. Most of us are on the ground, and there's trees around our buildings, and we might not have a clear view with which to take pictures or even to observe this phenomena. Now, let me read to you the letter she sent me, which got this all started. She said, "Son, here's some exciting news. I was watching the thunderheads build out my sliding glass doors. There was one really tall one getting taller and taller. Then the top bumped close to a chemtrail. The head of the thunderhead began to move sideways and finally broke off and drifted away. Therefore, a thunderhead cannot build until it explodes into rain if there is a chemtrail above it. Here are my pictures for you to see. The last picture is of the final view of the thunderhead. The 2 before that are a general view of what the sky above looked like. They have been spraying since early morning. This phenomena, watching a thunderhead demolished by a chemtrail, is something I have never seen before." So this is an excellent capture series of pictures from my mom with her camera. Let's go to the next frame, and I've gone in with the draw program and added some lines in here to help bring out what I want you to see. If you look at the top of these first sequence of pictures, the hazy stuff above are the chemtrails that have begun to disperse, and they form this nice artificial layer above everything. So my top notation says by 10 a.m. the chemtrails have dispersed into a fine mist, a layer visible above the normal clouds. And sometimes you can see between the clouds the streaks and the lines. They're spraying while the clouds are already out. So they're continuing to maintain this artificial layer. Below I say, please observe this thunderhead as it begins to form. This is the thunderhead in question. You can see it looks like a little mountain there as it begins to grow in size and form. And these thunderheads have to grow to a certain size to be able to kind of collapse in on themselves and cause the rain. So if they're not able to reach height and gain their mass like they always normally do, then they're going to be affected, and there may be a change, and they may react differently than they normally do. In the next frame, I just want you to see, without any lines or me adding anything in there, just the straight picture, the mist at the top, the thunderhead in the background. Next frame, again, I've added some arrows and comments. You can really see the aerosol mist haze on the top of this picture, right? Make a notation, aerosol mist / haze from spray planes. I mean, it's an artificial layer that is above the thunderstorm activity. And below, I draw a line to accent the shape of the thunderhead, which is now building and rising and growing in size. My notation says thunderhead continues to form, rising ever closer to the nanoparticulate layer above. This is what my mom's talking about. It's rising towards the chemtrail layer above. Next frame, I remove the line so you can see just the thunderhead forming and the obvious hazy chemtrail section above the thunderhead. Okay, the next frame, again, I show you the nanoparticulates above, the white haze. The thunderhead is reaching the nanoparticulate layer and begins to detach. See how close it is to the nanoparticulates, and see where my arrow at the very bottom goes in towards where it's beginning to detach and break away. You can see it getting thinner there. It's not going to build to its full height. It's not going to be a robust thunderhead. It is instead going to be deficient, and this is going to affect it adversely. And you will see that instead of forming into a huge thunderstorm and turning dark and pouring down rain, which in Florida this certain time of year, it's every day you could set your clock by, and that's not going on here right now. And I'm sure farmers are scratching their head. Next frame, I've removed the lines. You can see the cloud as it is and the nanoparticulate artificial layer above. Okay, in this frame, again, I show you still the artificial haze unmoving. It's always there. It's above the whole area. I mean, they spray from east to west coast here and sometimes off out to sea. You can see where there's contact with artificial layer, maximum height of thunderhead attained. It's not going to get any taller than this. This is it, because when it nears or contacts this artificial layer, something happens, and it keeps it, restrains it from fully developing. Thunderhead almost fully detached, now moving sideways. And my mom said she observed this effect. Instead of the vertical ascension, the thunderhead is now moving off to the side. It's going wherever it can go, and it's beginning to detach even more now. Point of detachment. I've got an arrow going there, and you can see it's just a little mist there, and it looks as if it's breaking away. But the point being, it's not forming into the tall thunderheads we're used to here in Florida for many years. But since the spring has begun, those weather patterns have begun to change, and now we're in a severe critical drought here in Florida. They're even admitting it on the local TV station, so it's not a secret anymore. I mean, we have springs dried up, the canoe outpost, no one's renting canoes, Santa Fe River is not flowing. It's a darn serious situation. This next frame, again, is that one without the lines and any accentuation on it. And you can see the thunderhead is now breaking away in the artificial layer nanoparticulate mist, whatever it is, aluminum, barium, strontium, aluminum oxide, whatever they're spraying on this particular, for this method. Now this next frame, I believe, is the final one. And this is really blockbuster because you see what the final effect is. Thunderhead continues to detach and move sideways. It is not going to form into that tall thunderhead that we're so used to, the darkened, giant, booming clouds that just rise up in the sky. They're huge, you know, and this is not happening anymore. What it's doing essentially, it's just flattening everything out and making it sporadic small clouds instead of one giant thunderhead that can really produce rain. So this one, you can see the end effect is that thing scoots off to the side, and maybe it begins to form one later, but not fully formed because it will be retarded in a manner of speaking. It's not going to be allowed to fully develop as it should. Next frame, I make a couple notes. Please note that. Number one, there's little to no wind on this day at this time. Mom said it wasn't there was wind shear or something was blowing it off to the side. That was simply not the case at all. Number two, any and all thunderheads underneath the artificial nanoparticulate layer are affected. So if they spray from coast to coast in Florida, anything that would form that day, it's not going to form to the level it normally would have. It has rained here recently, but it diminishes the amount of rain. And that's very severe when you look at the crop damage and the crop damage nationally that we're experiencing right now. If you look at the drought indicator index, which is very inaccurate because it doesn't show Florida in the state that we're in. It's like the unemployment ratios. They make it look as best they can by cooking the books, if that's what you want to call it. So, you know, take that with a grain of salt. When you look at the drought indicator index, it's much worse than they're really letting on. This next frame is the one my mom talked about, that she just wanted to get a picture of what the chemtrail haze, the chemtrail layer above, had formed into. And again, if you look at the feathering here, people are really beginning to recognize when they see this particular feathering. And I don't know if they send some kind of power to it, electromagnetic waves, or if just the chemical compound itself and the wind currents cause it to form into those feathering patterns. But what we know is the effect that we have just visibly seen in the sequence of pictures of how it affects the thunderstorms and why they're not forming. And this is why local meteorologists and 9 out of 10 meteorologists will not talk about climate engineering or weather modification at all. John Gerard of WOIA in Texas, if I remember correctly, if that's the right name, he does talk about it. So there are some that will mention cloud seeding and the negative effects, because it's really not producing any rain. If that's the intended goal, it's not. Which is another thing I should mention carefully. I can't say this is their intended goal, but certainly whatever they're doing, that is the effect it's having, whether desired or not. This is what we're experiencing in Florida. If you love kayaking, if you love scuba diving, if you enjoy the freshwater springs of Florida, if you're a farmer in Florida, if you just love being outside, this is something you should be very concerned with, especially because the respiratory illness is at an all-time high. Just look at the CDC records, and we're in quite a state right now, not even to mention the global dimming problem that we certainly have. Whether you believe in contrails or chemtrails or anything, when the sky is streaked with this mist and the sun is blotted out, no one can deny that the full level of sunlight is not reaching the ground and the plants where it needs to, or our skin to produce vitamin D, for that matter. So in the background, you can see the broken thundercloud detaching, moving sideways, and above is the artificial nanoparticulate layer, feathering type effect. This is what the thunderheads are up against, and it spreads from sky to sky, as far as you can see on most days, and they're out by the time I go out to get breakfast, 8 or 9, they're already spraying. I can see streaks in the sky. By 10 o'clock, this is the haze we have over Florida. Not every day, but usually what we find now, and many researchers' conclusion they're coming to, is it's to offset these weather patterns and indeed diminish the rainfall. I mean, that is the effect we're experiencing, whether intended or not. Next frame is a close-up of artificial layer, and you can see just the misty, hazy nanoparticulates that they're spraying up there in the sky. So this is the short end of my presentation. The final frame is one I've showed in a previous lecture I did, and this is the chicken scratch type, crosshatch effect from a satellite view, and you can really get a good view how they're trying to cover large, vast areas. It's certainly not commercial traffic, as this photograph, the producer of it mentioned, says this NASA satellite photo clearly shows that chemtrails are not from normal air traffic. Instead of lines connecting cities, we see intentionally sprayed X's in grid patterns. Rainwater is testing toxically high for barium and aluminum. And this is just the sad fact we're experiencing these days. And you can visibly see it by beginning to watch the sky and pay attention. A lot of people don't know about this because they're they may be kind of encapsulated in a sub kind of reality, if you will, between football and sports and entertainment and all this other stuff going on. It's easy to get distracted. And the analogy I would use is much like the hunter and his deer stand and the deer down below. And that's why the Indian would climb up in a tree, or a hunter will take to a deer stand, because the deer coming down below, he's only interested in the grass or whatever is at eye level. He can't see you, he can't smell you. So it's a level of awareness, people, level of awareness. And I advise you to look into climate engineering, weather modification, aerosol engineering, chemtrails, whatever you want to call it. It's got a million different names, but certainly worth looking into, because we're all being affected by it adversely. And Florida, as you've just seen in the sequence of spectacular photographs, you've actually seen it in action. You've actually just seen what it does to the thunderclouds here. You've seen a chemtrail haze demolish a Florida thunderhead. And it wasn't just one that morning. My mom said it was one after another, and after 2 or 3 of these happened, she got the camera out and started taking pictures. So look for me to supply some future photographs and document a lot more of this activity over Florida. And you should be concerned if you're a farmer, if you're just a citizen, whoever you are. You really need to be concerned by this, because whatever the intended effect was to cool planet Earth, okay, it is not working. It's been 15 years of this. The weather's off the hook around the planet. We have events, earthquakes, volcanoes. I mean, it's almost like straight out of a movie now. And what else can we conclude but all these planes flying around spraying this stuff, and the exhaust of these planes flying around spraying this stuff is taking a tremendous toll on the environment, because it's not natural. It's not normally there. My suggestion would be, can we just have them stop spraying for a year? And let's see if conditions return to normal. Does rainfall return? If it does, then part of a scientific experiment. You say, hey, the experiment didn't work. We return to normal rainfall, and we call it off. And I think that's fair enough. This is a short version of my presentation. Look for a longer one I'll do that will go much more in detail into weather modification and proof thereof. But this should be a lock to you as far as the thunderstorms in Florida. If you're a Florida resident and you're wondering why it's dry, well, now you know. Okay, thanks for joining me for this presentation. This is Tony Muga, aka Hattrick Penry. Find me on YouTube and my WordPress blog. Thank you very much.
BBC recently did a radio documentary in which they exposed that the Great Flood at Lynmouth in 1952, when they had 250 times the rainfall, and it created this massive wave of water that came through the village, killing 35 people, was actually done by the RAF. They called it Operation Cumulus, also Operation Witch Doctor, and it was manipulated on purpose as an experiment on weather manipulation. It's been going on that long and earlier. Here is a US Air Force document, 1996. It describes the artificial creation of floods, hurricanes, droughts and earthquakes, and continues. Weather modification will become a part of domestic and international security and could be done unilaterally. It could have offensive and defensive applications and even be used for deterrence purposes. The ability to generate precipitation, fog, storms on Earth, to modify space weather, and the production of artificial weather all are part of an integrated set of military technologies. Now, of course, most people will now be bloody aware, my God, were we bombarded this year or what, with chemtrails, not contrails which disappear, condensation trails, chemtrails that don't disappear if they come out the back of these bloody aircraft. They stay around and they come out and eventually drop to the earth, and they have strontium, they have aluminium, they have barium. It's acidifying water, it's acidifying the land, and it is causing tremendous impacts on human health, cumulatively, again, the coal. But it's doing something else. In the HARP patents and specifications, etc., in the description of a researcher describing and summarizing what it said this: dispersed metallic particles such as aluminium, barium and strontium, the main chemical ingredients of chemtrails, or ingredients of chemtrails, may increase the atmosphere's conductivity and therefore enhance HARP's weather modification performance. So it's doing that as well. So where am I going with this? Well, I'm going here. Dr. Richard Day, 1969, the weather will be modified and used as a weapon of war to create drought or famine. A weapon of war against who? In Agenda 21 terms, a weapon of war against the small farmers, landowners and growers of the world, not least in America. We have had in America this massive drought this year, which has devastated small independent farmers and growers. Of course, the big bloody corporations can cope with it, got unlimited bloody funds when they're part of the agenda. And so, also, in 2011 and other times, we've had these extraordinary forests of tornadoes. It was about 300 in a period of 3 days at one point. I think it was 2011. And that, of course, is devastating rural communities and what have you. Creating tornadoes with HARP technology, child's bloody play. And what have we had in this country? Devastating weather and floods, which again has had a massive impact upon small farmers and growers. And you know, there was a report for the European Parliament, a European Parliament committee in the 1990s, about HARP, which was actually quite good because it was saying, hold on a minute, we don't like this. And one of the things it was saying is that HARP technology had the ability to manipulate the jet stream and change weather patterns. Well, when you look at the meteorological explanation for the great deluge in Britain this summer, they say extraordinary things happen to the jet stream. And instead of going away and taking, dropping some and going off into Europe, it basically started doing this, which is why we got the bloody lot.
Эксперимент номер 437. Предполагаемая продолжительность. Никто не может скрыться.
I'd love to play you back the recording that when I called NASA yesterday and I spoke with someone in your Washington, D.C. office, I was told that he's scared to death. He's going to denounce his citizenship and go back to the Philippines.
Okay.
That's what I was told by NASA yesterday when I called.
Okay. And
Directly from your office.
Did you record that conversation with their knowledge?
Well, I'm sorry?
Did you record that conversation with their knowledge?
Are you recording my conversation with that knowledge, sir?
No.
I'm sorry?
No, I'm not recording any conversation.
You're not recording any conversation with my knowledge, and NASA isn't either, and you can't get through it anyway. If you want to leave a message, it rings and rings and then hangs up on you. Same with Wallop Island. So I would love to leave a message there. Could you give me a direct answer? Because it says you're the scientist here on the NASA website.
Yeah, I'm involved in the project, but...
You are a scientist, so then, and you know that this is experimental, you've never done it before?
No, it's been done in the 1970s, it's been done recently in the 1990s and 2000s.
Oh, that's not what it said on this article here.
3, 2, 1, 0, plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
It hasn't been done since 1970, the lithium release in the daytime.
Why would it be done now then, sir? That's scary.
Detailed information. If you could please send your comments by email.
Okay, will you respond to my email if I send them?
Happy to answer them, yes.
You will. Okay, what was your email, sir?
Douglas.e.Roland, D-O-U-G-L-A-S.
Douglas. I'm sorry?
E.
Uh-huh.
Roland, R-O-W-L-A-N-D.
Uh-huh. At,
NASA.gov.
I'm sorry?
NASA.gov. NASA.gov.
Okay. Well, I will be expecting an email back from you then, sir. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's very important we communicate what we're doing to the public. We're very interested in making sure everyone knows what we're doing. We're not, we're a civilian space agency dedicated to science and research and so on. So we're very, very keen to make sure that the taxpayers know what we're doing and everything. So.
Well, you know, when the article came out in the major newspapers, including the Huffington Post, there was no mention of lithium. Not one. Not one mention of lithium. Until I heard the recording of the actual, I listened to it. I listened to the rockets go off. I had no idea there was going to be a lithium dispersed until I heard payload, lithium dispersed.
Good indicators of chemical deploys. And lithium on Terra improved urine have been deployed. Okay.
RSO TDOSS request to declare the area clear and release the roadblocks.
TD concurs if RSO does.
RSO concurs.
All right, copies. Yeah, the science team reports out that they do see the lithium trails. These lithium trails allow them to look at the winds and that of the ionosphere. And these winds are believed to be the carriers of the dynamic.
Well, make sure everyone knows that we see the lithium from the airplane.
Roger that.
We've got good sine waves on the electric field.
PI copies.
Right. There was lithium dispersed, and I'd be happy to talk to you about it. I think you might be under some misconceptions about what we're doing, but I'm happy to tell you any details that you need.
Well, I know that it says in your article that you're doing it for communications.
Okay, I'm happy to talk to you more about it. There are many reasons we're doing it.
Okay.
We don't understand how the wind in the upper atmosphere moves.
Mm-hmm.
In these chemtrails, there's different kinds of chemtrails, as you probably know. Different trails at night we use and different trails during the day. The wind blows them around. They glow either on their own or from scattered sunlight. We take pictures and we can see how the wind trail moves around and use that to infer what the wind is. Just like if you were taking a picture of an airplane contrail, you can use that to see how the wind was blowing up at those altitudes. This is much higher altitude, so we use these chemical trails.
And what is the purpose of knowing what the wind's going to do in the ionosphere?
The purpose is the ionosphere is really to understand our planet. It's very fundamental science. We're trying to understand every day. We know there's electric currents that flow over the head. They're just naturally there. They've been there for ever since the Earth had an atmosphere and a magnetic field. And the wind is driven by the sun. The sun heats the atmosphere. The wind blows, and every day that wind drives an electric current. And we're trying to understand what causes that. Essentially, how does it work in detail? And also importantly, when the sun becomes active with lots of sunspots and lots of magnetic activity, that changes the wind pattern and changes the electric current. So we want to understand both what it is on a regular day when there's no solar activity, and then what it is when there's a lot of solar activity.
Is there some other kind of a way that you can use it without dispersing the lithium?
We're researching other ways. The lithium is actually harmless to the environment, and we could show you more about that. But it is tricky to use because it's very faint. You can't see it with your naked eye. You have to, have special cameras to see it and so on. So we don't like to use it for that reason. It's hard. In other words, it's hard measurement to make. We're researching other ways to put sensors directly on the rocket to measure the wind, and those are ongoing. We're trying to develop those now. In fact, one of the purposes of this mission was to do that.
Okay. Well, you've explained it to me then. I don't agree with it, but I appreciate you explaining it to me.
Email too if you have detailed questions, anything you want.
Okay, I will. I'm gonna research it a little more, and I will email you. And I appreciate you taking the time out to speak to me today, sir.
Get your call. It's not often we get to hear from members of the public and people who are really interested and concerned with what we're doing. And I really appreciate your time.
I wish more people would call. I really do. I've called my senators. I've called my governor. You can't get through to anyone, sir. You can't get through to anybody.
Yeah.
I go to my city council. I live in rural North Carolina. They don't care. They laugh you out of there. There's no other recourse for us, sir, unless to talk to people directly and find out what is going on, because we're paying for it.
Well, I don't know how far you are from Walls Flight Facility. Is that easy? Is that drivable from where you are?
Where is it, sir? I don't know where it is.
It's north of Norfolk, Virginia. It's on the eastern shore of Virginia. If you're at Norfolk, it would probably take you another 2.5 hours to get there. So if you're in North Carolina, I don't know where you are, but maybe.
Right. Yeah, I'm in western rural North Carolina near the Tennessee border.
Have a chance. You might consider either going to Goddard Space Flight Facility, which is outside of D.C. There is Clemson University, which is where all the chemical release work is done.
Oh, really? Well, that's very close to me.
You might contact those guys. I'm sure they'd be happy to explain what they're doing.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, I will do that. Just ask for the science department.
Well, I don't know what department they're in, but Larson, Larsen, Miguel Larson is the lead, and he's been doing this for decades and can explain in detail what they're doing and why it's not an issue for people living. We wouldn't, we would be, as a government agency, we would not be allowed, to do anything that would be harmful. So he's under strict controls and that sort of thing. So he can explain it to you. He can even show you around, that sort of thing.
Okay, and you said his name was Miguel Larsen with an L?
Larsen.
Okay, at Clemson. Okay, well, thank you so much, Mr. Rowland. I appreciate all of your information.
Yeah.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Today for our 7th event in Liverpool to raise awareness into geoengineering and chemtrails. We're actually down in Merseyside Police Headquarters today. What we've got in this envelope is a copy of the directive that can be handed into all MPs, along with the Unified Atmospheric Preservation Act and an accompanying letter to the Chief of Police, Jonathan Murphy, to investigate the crime of geoengineering over the airways of Merseyside. What we're hoping to achieve from this event today, folks, is for people to take the lead from us around the world, download the directive on www.uk-skywatch.co.uk. Download this directive. It's the only armour we've really got to stop this in its tracks, to make our MPs answerable and our media answerable. Within these documentations, it's watertight, cast iron. We are not saying to them that we want to discuss geoengineering or chemtrails and contrails. What we are asking them for now is to investigate it and start reporting it as a matter of urgency on behalf of the people of Great Britain. So I'm hoping from today's event that people will take lead from this and start doing the same. I actively encourage everybody to download this directive. You can also get the directive off Chemtrail Project UK. Download the directive, hand it into your local MPs. It's the only way forward, folks, to stop this in its tracks. We're going to go inside now and hand in the directive to the Chief Constable of Merseyside Police. The responses that we get from the Merseyside Police and indeed local media and politicians within the Merseyside area will be reported on Critical Mass Radio on the Real Solutions Show. Please tune into Critical Mass Radio on www.criticalmassradio.co.uk. Cheers, folks. #1 truth station in the UK. Just going to go inside now. Skies, ladies and gentlemen, the cloud cover you see today is artificial. It's called geoengineering.
Hi,
Please look up on the website www.skywatch.uk. You'll get all the information you need there to understand what is going on in your skies, over your head and indeed all around the world. Geoengineering, chemtrails. Please investigate this, ladies and gentlemen. We've been poisoned from up above for over 15 years. Our governments and media are fully aware. They have stonewalled this. They refuse to talk to us. We are representing you as your media today, folks. Geoengineering, chemtrails, please look it up.
You wonder why your weather is weird. It's because it's being manipulated. The sky is being artificially inseminated with aluminium and barium. this is making it rain in places and not rain in other places. So what should be a nice sunny day turns into a milky white day. Vitamin D is at an Alzheimer's is at an all-time high because of the aluminium fallout. And also vitamin D levels are very low because there's no sun. And rickets is back, which was supposed to be eradicated years ago. These are the two positive things that show you stuff is not right in our skies. Plants are dying, trees are dying, and the bees are dying. It's got to be stopped. No bees, no life.
Our food stocks are in crisis, our bee colonies are in crisis. We have a reduction, 80% of bees around the world. The bees goes, folks, so do we. Please do some research into geoengineering. www.uk-skywatch.co.uk. Look it up on the internet, look it up on YouTube. For more information, please tune into Critical Mass Radio, the #1 truth station in the UK. One of the only places where you will truly find out what is happening around the world in this country. Our weather is in crisis, our food stocks are in crisis, our bee colonies are in crisis. Local governments, national governments, local media, national media, all around the world are complicit of covering this up. We have an epidemic of Alzheimer's in this country due to the aluminium that has been sprayed down on us on a daily basis. Water samples around the world have been correlated, folks. They are showing record spikes in aluminium, barium and strontium. We have epidemics of cancers in this country due to the barium and the strontium that has been sprayed down on us deliberately all around the world on a daily basis. We have an epidemic of Alzheimer's in this country due to the aluminium that has been sprayed to us on a daily basis. We have an epidemic of rickets in this country due to the lack of sunlight that we are now receiving on planet Earth. NASA have admitted we are 20% dimmer on this planet than we were back in the mid-80s. Geoengineering, chemtrails, folks, please do some research into this crime that affects every man, woman, child and animal on this planet. Our food crisis, our food stocks are in crisis.
But Jesus paid the price, he made it right for us. So it's not about us getting it right, he's already got it right, it's already been done. And all you need to do is to put your trust in the Saviour, in Jesus, and acknowledge that he is Lord, and he did die and rise.
Geoengineering, chemtrails. Please folks, do some research into this deadly crime that is affecting all of us around the world. Our food stocks are in crisis, our weather is in crisis.
Believe in the name of Jesus Christ and confess with your mouth that he is Lord, you will be saved.
Not on all anymore. They dispersed the next
We're here with Sue Budd, and she was just telling me a story about when she was out in the garden, and she's been into chemtrails about 6 months. Is that right?
Well, I'd noticed them in the sky. I wasn't sure what was going on, and
you suffered some kind of health effects from being out in it directly.
Well, yeah, I'd noticed them, and we were in the garden 4 days running because we were having a fence put up, and I felt great at the beginning of the week. By the end of the week, I felt shit, and I couldn't think. I thought, is there anything to do with those chemtrails? I'm sure that's not normal. I was walking along Falmouth High Street and Pete the farmer handed me a leaflet.
Right.
And I looked at it, chemtrails. I thought, I know that that's what's causing it.
And you shut your windows now if there's a heavy spraying?
So of course I looked into it on the internet, and all the dots joined up, and when I notice, I've got a big picture window, when I notice the spraying I just don't go outside. I try not to go outside. I try to spend as little time outside as possible. I shut the windows.
Same here.
When it's a day like today, I open all the windows and I clean all the air in the house. I get lots of fresh air in the house. And then when the chemtrails come over...
Exactly, yeah. I do.
Isn't it interesting that this is the, what day is it today?
Sunday the 25th of August.
And what's happening?
Global Chemtrail March. Global March against
chemtrails. No chemtrails today.
Oh no, the weather gods have cleared the sky for us.
Yeah.
They always do. When I did a chemtrail rally outside the Ministry of Defence offices in Duxford, in Cambridge, it was clear sky all day. And there was 30 people like today, And then they did a big circle in the sky with a face on it. That's on video.
A couple of months ago, we were out sailing in Falmouth Bay, and it was beautiful. There were no clouds. It was completely blue sky, and it had been like that for a day or two. And I thought, this is really weird, because we've had spraying almost every day ever since I was aware of this. And I said to my husband, we were just sailing along, I said to my husband, do you know, I think there must be somebody very important in Cornwall at the moment, because there's no chemtrails. He said,
the Queen
is in St Ives.
Yeah, was it you that was mentioning she left her footprints there and it's quite a sacred place?
Pardon?
She left her footprints there or something?
No, I don't know that story.
Yeah, I must catch up with that story, it's interesting.
It's a big rabbit hole.
It is. Well, thank you for your input, and thanks for letting people know what's happening and how it affects you.
I hope that's helped.
It will do, it does, absolutely. Thank you.
Basically, I've taken put my life on hold. I've been working as a builder all my life, which means I've been working outside all my life. Yeah. And everyone complains about the weather, but I'm very in tune with the weather because I work outside all the time. Being weather dependent, I'd always be aware whether or not it might rain or whatever. So I know what the skies are looking like. I'd be keeping an eye out. Could I finish my work off before it started raining or whatever? So I would watch the sky frequently. And then I started, apart from the change in the weather, I started to notice these trails in the sky. And when I saw these trails from these planes, I realised I'd never seen trails like that before. They were something new.
I was also interested, you said you're on quite a high vantage point as well.
Yeah, I'm on the side of a hill, so I've got a good vista. Yeah. I look right out over hills, so I've got a really good panoramic view from where I am, so I can see the true length of these trails and the magnitude. They're so big, they're crisscrossing. They must be going, I don't know, kilometres and kilometres and kilometres, horizon to horizon. And when you see these, it's like, it was never like that before. As far as the amount of evidence we've looked into, when I say evidence, there's lots of research documents, there's lots of government documents, there's lots of evidence that people can identify with that must be real, that's credible. Because there's the visual evidence, and we've got rainwater analysis. And the content of the rainwater can only come from the atmosphere at the point of nucleation. So therefore, if you find lots of information that tell you what they might be doing, and that's quite strong evidence, and then you're more conclusive with the rainwater that confirms what you've been reading, the final one is to say, well, what's putting it in the atmosphere? They say it would be the planes in their proposed plan. But we need to perhaps get the right type of equipment, the right type of plane to be able to take a conclusive, a valid aerial sample of what's coming out of the back of these planes, leaving a long trail to be confirmed. But I've looked into this on an amateur level, and I realised that a normal piston prop plane, you couldn't have a flying lesson in a Cessna and go up because they can't get the right altitude. They don't fly high enough. Yeah. So it's not like we can do this on a low budget thing, we'll chip in. We need a more sophisticated plane. Now the problem with the Lear jets and the private jets, of course they can go high enough, and perhaps because I monitor the planes sufficiently, I could chart a course for the plane to cross a likely chemtrail, because we couldn't just, you have air traffic control and you have flight paths and origin, point, destination, and it'd be very difficult to veer off that without, these days, there's a change in the way that the air traffic control is. There's a new change coming in. The military are becoming a part of the civilian aviation authority. So if you did get the jet with a grab canister fitted to it, so that's the other problem. You can get a retrofit grab canister, but it needs to be fitted to the outside of the plane because it's a pressurised jet. So you really need to get, from my point of view, being an amateur, a lay person, we need to appeal to people that have got a better knowledge, because there are planes that can do this. They can test it.
Well, you know, maybe if you get some celebrities on board that are interested in the cause.
Yeah, to raise a profile of this.
Some of them might be able to achieve that, you know.
I agree.
With a plane.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, part of going on our tour here is to raise awareness and perhaps get more people with. We're just ordinary people, you know. We're a mishmash of people. We've come from different backgrounds, different areas of the countries, but we share a common concern that we've looked into this sufficiently that we've become convinced to take time out of our lives to be fully committed to raising awareness to this. And we see our goal is raising sufficient awareness that better qualified people with more experience, more clout, more influence can help and raise awareness and make a difference.
Going back to the plane spotting, if you imagine how many people in the room last night had an iPhone.
Yeah.
You mentioned about that app.
Yes.
To be able to track a plane or find out where the plane is supposed to be going or what it's doing.
Yeah.
Imagine if everyone had an iPhone.
Yeah,
did
and
that
monitoring.
each time they saw a plane.
Yeah.
And just wrote it down and then gave you that information.
Oh, very well. In
You're
fact,
starting to gather so much data that you can say, look, this day there were 30 planes here that weren't taking people on holiday. They weren't taking people to another country. They were up there flying back and forth, doing something. Can someone please answer what it is that they're doing?
Without a doubt. And also I've now, where I talk to people from all over the world in different groups online, they've started to use this system, and they track a plane that's spraying, and then they contact their friends in another part of the country, tell them to when that plane's coming to them to film it, and so they're tracking it with the people on the ground. They're acting as a team, and they're monitoring these flights. So we're starting to get people power on the ground, just using the resources that are available to actually monitor the planes. That's particularly useful in places like Australia, where the flight paths are quite clearly defined. Obviously, in the UK, it might be a bit more complicated because there's thousands of planes crisscrossing the country. But there's no doubt about it. We have some resources that we can use, and people can connect with, and everyone can get involved, and they can show someone in real time. They can say, "See that plane?" and they can. Everyone needs to wake up to this and participate, because clearly we know that the government have to be complicit with this programme, and they're obviously continuing with their agenda. And although I've contacted MPs and many other people who have been concerned about this issue are contacting MPs, we get stonewalled, we get polite letters back, we get excuses, but no one's really addressing it. We're not getting an opportunity to really contact them. They keep us at a distance because we share information. They must be monitoring what we're sharing amongst our groups, and they're aware that we've actually found a lot of conclusive evidence that's sufficient to convince us to do this.
And what areas do you target in the government? Department of Environment, Agriculture?
I've contacted the Air Pollution Department. I can't remember the abbreviation exactly for it. Other people have contacted DEFRA, the Department of Environment.
Yeah.
I've contacted different universities for their environmental departments to see if I could perhaps approach some of the professors, which they haven't got back to me.
They're not interested.
They just don't get back to you.
Are you putting forward an agenda to them, or are you just asking for information or their view? Or?
Well, generally I say that I've become aware to certain issues and told them about particular things like rainwater testing and about geoengineering and about climate change, and said that I believe that this is going on. I've recorded lots of trails in the sky that never used to be there, and because of the rainwater testing. I mean, that's quite a key thing, actually. I think as I started to investigate this personally, in my in my spare time, bearing in mind, you know, I'm a working man, I'm a builder, and I'm quite often exhausted. I've got a lot to do. Things like doing the rainwater testing was a big step for me. It was a big step because it wasn't cheap, and we went.
I saw that in the documentary where they were doing the rainwater testing, and wasn't there some tree ring stuff as well?
Well, actually, when you look into geoengineering, one of the things that they say they're going to try and do is react to global warming, which they perceive to be a problem, and they're going to use solar radiation management, which is injecting the atmosphere with particles to reflect the sun away, so that the sun can't heat up the planets. Yeah. As I started to look into this, if this was a good idea, I came across, by chance, purely by chance, an article about a year without a summer. In 1816, there was a volcanic eruption, which is what they're trying to mimic. This is what they actually say, that's what they want to do. And the reason that we could find that this article was there is because it's a year without summer, is because there was hardly any growth. And the reason the tree ring that you brought up was there's something called dendrochronology, which is a practice of looking at the tree rings. Yeah. And that's how you can date a volcanic eruption in the past.
The reason I'm interested in that is it can't lie.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly. So this, for me, it's been a journey of discovery, and as each little discovery just reinforces my conviction, because I'm starting to piece together information that it only seems to add to my conviction, because more pieces of the puzzle creates a bigger picture, and you can't help. You reach a certain point when you realise no one's going to help us except for us. So we as individuals have to participate and take responsibility for what's happening, because clearly the government have an agenda, and therefore they're not serving the people, not serving we the people. So we've been inspired by the reactions of people in our groups, that we realise I've learnt a lot from all the groups, we've shared information. There's a collective benefit of getting together and sharing information and raising awareness. But online, there does become an element where you've reached a level of information and you're just reinforcing what you already know. So I realised it was time to go out to the streets and hit people that might not be researching the stuff online, and they're not attracted to the groups, and they don't know anything about it. Because there was a point when we first realised this was real, and my partner and I, Monica, we looked at our older pictures and thought, well, if this has been going on so long, how didn't we see this? And we started to look at the pictures, and we realised there were chemtrails in some of the pictures, and we didn't know it was going on whatsoever. And as we started to look at it, we realised that it was introduced incrementally. It was a build-up. So people became accustomed to it and they didn't see it happening. So if we couldn't see it happening after all the time before we knew about it, then there must be lots of other people who don't know it's happening. So we realised we need to do more and get out and talk to people and to help people see this for themselves. And if they have problems accepting it, share information to reinforce what helped us reach that level that we became convinced that this is going on. So, I mean, that's what we're starting to do, and the information is quite conclusive and it's quite comprehensive, and if people delve into it, they can really, really quite quickly find out that this is real. And it can be very overwhelming. It's depressing, it's upsetting, it's a challenge to know that our government is working against our interests. They're working for another interest that's got nothing to do with the welfare of the people. That's a very difficult concept to accept.
But we're lucky that we're not in China or Russia,
where they can do
where you wouldn't be allowed to speak freely.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. Oh yeah, we are very, very lucky. And at the moment, fortunately, we have got some free speech. We have got the opportunity to use the internet to connect with each other. And we can still go out on the streets and talk to people. And in fact, I talk to the police. I talk to everyone that is willing to listen. And the change from when we started to go and make a commitment. We had a conference in London last year in December. We went out onto the streets to hand out flyers, and there was a confusing response from people. A lot of people didn't want to know. They weren't interested. Some did, which was enough to inspire us that it was worthwhile doing. Well, we've had a wonderful response. We've been really inspired. It's very, very positive. Everybody's asking questions. They want to know more. And we were invited to go to Glastonbury Town Hall, and the councillors were there, and they were very interested, and they wanted to know what they could do and how to get involved. And we presented enough information that they really wanted to know more and what they could do themselves. And they're going to set up groups, and they want to share information and alert people. And it really is, from the London conference, going out on the streets of London, and was it 4 months later, the change, more people are receptive. Maybe we've learned a little bit more information, and we've learned a little bit. This is a journey,
sure, and
it is changing as we go along. One thing that we're finding, though, is that we're getting a lot of support. A lot of people are realising that this is going on, and they're glad someone is speaking out about it and raising awareness. It seems to be something lacking. I don't think the mainstream media have really covered this.
There will be some fear as well, though, won't there?
Well, it depends on how the fear is received. If it's a fear to trigger you into action, then maybe that fear is necessary to wake people up. Because what's happening, we've looked into the correlation with illnesses, and we've looked into research documents that demonstrate the ingredients of what they're spraying will cause illnesses. So the concept that they might be doing it, but there is a correlation in illnesses, we should be frightened of it because it's real and people are feeling the effects.
But I also mean that whilst you're speaking out, and you say when you handed out the leaflets, you get different reactions.
Yeah.
Some people will be afraid to speak out.
I have found.
I was interested last night when you were talking about the helicopter appearing. It does create, conspiracy theories, and my thoughts turn to the X-Files.
So that's interesting, isn't it? Because conspiracy theory, why should that be wrong? Because everything was thought about before it was put into action. And a conspiracy is simply a group of people, or even just two people we're conspiring. So why should that suddenly... I know what the reaction is. People think ludicrous or the ridicule, or there's a label, there's a reaction attached to when you hear the two words conspiracy theory or theorists.
I suppose...
well, clearly we all need to participate. Because it's only collectively we've got a lot of power.
Yeah, exactly.
And collectively, we voted in these different politicians, and if we all become aware that maybe they're not working for us, collectively we can decide not to vote them in, and we can really use our real power, our consumer power, and we can say, right, no, we're going to have a new government, we'll form a government, and we'll vote that government in because our government's failing us, they're unfit to govern us.
I'd wager you and I didn't vote them in.
I would imagine probably 80% of the population of this country who's become apathetic in the system probably didn't vote them in.
Yeah.
And I'm quite certain if we started to wake up people and get them to participate and realise, there's something quite simple we can do. When's the next election? Let's vote in a whole new political party. In fact, I was asked if I would be a leader of a new political party, a Skywatch party. But because I live in France, I said I don't think that would be appropriate. And what I'm doing at the moment is just raise it. I don't want to be a politician. I'm a builder. I've got my life. I just want to raise awareness.
However, there is an element of this that does need to be political. It does need to get political, doesn't it?
Well, I think that there's undoubtable. At the moment, they're keeping it. They're not admitting to it, and they're the ones that control us. They make the laws, but they're denying it. They're not admitting to it. Well, they categorically deny that chemtrails exist.
Right. Okay.
But if you talk to them about geoengineering, in their documents, they say they are doing it for very small trials. So they can't deny that. But what they won't say is it's a huge program that everyone's experiencing all over the world. I am in contact with people all over the world. Therefore, I know it's happening all over the world, and this must be a massive program. And the fact that it's such a huge program means that there's a complicity amongst all the governments. So it's not just us that's got to participate here in the UK. It's absolutely all around the world. There has to be a huge transition, because clearly all the governments are failing all their people. The whole system's failing everybody. And it's about time people started taking self-determination, choosing self-determination and taking responsibility. Because why shouldn't we take responsibility for our lives? Why should we hand all that responsibility to some politicians? Politicians that are clearly not working for us. We need to start working for us, we the people. And I think that is something that the level of support we're getting on this tour is very inspiring, very empowering, and people are suddenly speaking out, are telling us. Yeah, I think actually what I'm seeing is a change in the public perception. The people have lost their faith in governments, because the governments they're criminals, aren't they really? They are criminals. You know, we know that Tony Blair, that was the last time I voted, he destroyed voting for me. That was the final straw that broke the back, because you know, when he decided to go to war, that ruined everything for me. And I was very concerned about going to war, and I was one of those people on the 2 million on the anti-war demonstration in 2003 in April. I protested or demonstrated against going to war because I felt it was wrong. And now we found out, recently the newspapers have released evidence that MI6 and CIA did notify their respective governments that there were no weapons of mass destruction. I've since watched an interview with John Pilger and a member of the British Diplomatic Service that explained that Iraq was on its knees, it had no capabilities, children were dying because there was no medication because of the tough sanctions and the no-fly zones, and yet they went to war. 1 million people were killed, innocent people, 5 million wounded, a country decimated. Children are born today with deformities because of depleted uranium. And there were no weapons of mass destruction. And it's quite clear that Dr. David Kelly was assassinated because he was about to reveal that there were no weapons of mass destruction. So this is the type of government we got. We've got genocide, we've got war crimes, and we're voting these people in. And Tony Blair's a peace envoy and wants to go to war with Iran now.
In the arena of chemtrails, it is always a matter of chemtrails plus. So I made a little breakdown. It's all stuff and subjects that damage us to begin with. So vaccines is the first time when you, as a baby, are being jabbed, then you have the first toxins in your body. Western medicine is another one. Western dentistry is another one. Medications and chemotherapy are stuff that are not compatible with our bodies. It's artificial, synthetic material. GM food crops, genetically manipulate, I can't even say the word. Yeah, no, I want to say manipulate because modify is a word that sounds so much nicer. And it's not nice at all. That's why I say it like that. Chemicals and pesticides, yeah, we all know about those. Food processing, taking out all the good stuff and putting in food additives in between and codex alimentarius to keep the good stuff away from us so we can't heal from the damage of this artificial food. I used to say in a village that it was the pharmacy that was the toxic belt in a village. Now a supermarket is a very good second one. Toxic packaging and radiation. They radiate our food, which means that it changes the proteins and the amino acids, the bondings between those materials. And toxic packaging, think about aluminum packages of Capri-Sonne. You have orange juice in an aluminum package. They gave that to a school class and they were, in no time, they had a lot of that to drink. And in no time, these kids got ADHD. It was the aluminum. Microwave kills your food. Teflon is basically fluoride. And fluoride in the water or in your cookware will take off 10 to 15 points of your IQ. Nuclear fallout, not so depleted uranium. Electropollution, very important. We are living batteries. Our system works with electromagnetic frequencies. So if you disturb those, you disturb the whole organism. And computers and cell phones will do that. And power cables and extra low frequencies. And S-Quad, silent sound spectrum, and I always forgot the fourth S, spread spectrum, yes, thank you. That is a way of manipulating our way of thinking. And then, of course, there's Hollywood and the television, but also, very important, they changed the musical tone A from 432 hertz to 440. And that has a deep impact. And it is never one thing, it is all these things together. So that I want to stretch very much. Here's the church in my backyard, and this was the sky as it has been given to us by God. Because, thank you Iceland. And this was 22nd of April, a few days later. They came back with a vengeance, with sag, 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 sag. So what is SAG? Stratospheric aerosol geoengineering, also known as chemtrails. And the particles, for people who want to know, is an aerosol is a suspension of fine solid particles or liquid droplets in a gas. First time global warming was mentioned was in the Indiana Hammond Times in '57. And they stated that California scientists were studying the possibility that this continued pouring forth of waste gases may upset the rather delicate carbon dioxide balance in the Earth's general atmosphere, and that a large-scale global warming with radical climate changes may result. That was '57. And up came the patents. This has been in the other presentation as well. And this is based on a patent from 1927, so they have been at it for quite some time. This is another patent that was mentioned also, and these are patents from 1965 and 1988. And then Welsbach materials and the oxides of metals are mentioned. Stuff that does not belong to our environment, to our lungs, to our systems, or whatsoever. This is a document that I found that has a conclusion that the most effective global warming method of mitigation is the spraying of reflective aerosol compounds into the atmosphere, utilizing commercial, military, and private aircraft. So there's your answer also. Global warming. What did NASA say in October 2005? Persistent jet contrails, read chemtrails, form man-made clouds that are trapping the warmth in the atmosphere and exacerbating global warming. They contribute to long-term changes in the Earth's climate and affect natural resources. And the US Army said in spring of 2008, the problem is with the sun. Global warming is not directly caused by civilization. And up comes the Council on Foreign Relations in May 2008 and says geoengineering is any of a variety of strategies such as injecting light-reflecting particles into the stratosphere that global warming. So they're back at it again. This is the weatherman who said, I know about this. This is radar stuff, and I know because I was in the army. But who is doing all this? From my research, I concluded that it is people like the US military, the Pentagon, international governments, rogue nations, and global corporations. And there's one name that I want to give you to research for yourself, and that is DynCorp. DynCorp is a semi-military organization, has also ties with commercial airlines, and they have patents on vaccines. So, interesting combination. Well, who? Well, this darling, Mr. Brzezinski, Obama's teacher, he said in 1970, Technology will make available to the leaders of major nations techniques for conducting secret warfare, of which only a bare minimum of the security forces need be appraised. In fact, I think they have only to warn one official. That's it. And that official can keep his mouth shut, so nobody knows. We don't know. We don't hear about it. And techniques of weather modifications could be employed to produce prolonged periods of drought or storm. Yes. This is the document that was mentioned earlier also, and the interesting thing is it was written in 1996, and it was created because in that period there was, for the first time, computer power to compute huge plans that you want to make. So with these same Cray computers with Oracle 8i software, they reverse engineered the 1918 flu virus, which is very similar to the H1N1. And also they had this document with 6 different scenarios, plans, what do we do here in 1996 to have this or that outcome in 2025. And in one of the 6 scenarios that was called digital cacophony, there is a timeline, and that mentions flu pandemic in 2009. Interesting. And this is what Mr. Vermeer showed us already, but then in a different view. But here you can see how you can manipulate things and use them to your advantage and to the disadvantage of your so-called enemy. Does that mean that our governments actually are harming us? Would they do that? I don't know. Biowar trials on UK citizens between 1940 and 1979. They sprayed E. coli and Bacillus globigi and zinc cadmium sulfide, all carcinogens. And another entity, together with an anthrax simulant and phenol, they spread that on UK citizens. And I took that example because in America you have examples like this galore, but it's important to keep it closer by home here. And Sue Ellison is the spokesperson for Porton Down Government Laboratory. You have Fort Detrick in America, the Biowar Laboratory, and you have Porton Down in the UK, the Biowar Laboratory. And when they accidentally released foot and mouth disease in 2001 in the UK, this spokesperson was asked whether they were going to do more trials on the civil population. And the answer was, it's not our policy to discuss ongoing research. In other words, shut up and be a nice guinea pig. This is Porton Down. It looks sort of a bit like Palace Soesdijk, I think. But they had to pay out £3 million in compensation to veterans of a test with sarin nerve gas. And this is the guy that survived that, Ken Earl, and he has this group, and he is fighting for their rights. So, do the governments do things that are not nice? I'm afraid so. Same goes for chemtrails and the flu. In 1998, between 2000, the CDC had 52 weeks of epidemic levels of fatalities from flu-like illness, pneumonia, and related cardiac arrests. And it's, mind you, it's a NASA document. And in England and Wales, people were sick within 1 week. Almost 100,000 people and 8,100 died, which was twice the usual number. And then we have this. Another coincidence. We have Mr. Moshe, who was tasered and pepper sprayed and everything, and he wanted to warn the world about a pathogen that was being created in the lab. And shortly thereafter, in the Ukraine, came this strange illness after hundreds of eyewitnesses had seen low chemtrailing above Kiev days before the outbreak. And they called it the mutant black lung flu virus, which makes me think of Yersinia pestis, the Black Plague. And I know for a fact that that is a biowar specimen that they're working on. And by the way, in America, there used to be some like 400 laboratories that had special biowar permission, so to speak. Now there are 1,088 in a very short time. So is there a method to this madness? Yes, it's even carved in stone. It's called Georgia Guidestones, and I leave it to your imagination what this might mean: maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. And anybody who still thinks I'm saying nonsense here, we have Denver International Airport. You arrive there and you get murals like these. And you have chemtrails here. And mind you, oh, by the way, at the end of the scimitar, that's not on this slide, there is the pigeon of peace. And this was created in 1995 by Leo Tanguma, and the people who organized this Denver International Airport have this signature. And it says, the New World Airport Commission. I don't know who these people are. So the signs are everywhere. So why SAG? And I don't know whether you can see it, but there's a little rainbow in it. I caught that just from my back garden. And they talk about weather modification. And they talk about temporary atmospheric antenna, the ducting thing. But it has links with HAARP, and it has links with DARPA, and it's one big happy family. We are not told about it, but it has all links. And what else? This is what Bill Deagle says in one of his radio programs. He talks about scalar interferometry mirrors to image a torsional vertex through the Earth, and scalar plasma interferometry type weapon systems, with which you can create a plasma type explosion over any city in the world. And these, basically the air is turned into a plasma, so you can do a lot of things and affect people, crops, and even earthquakes. So there are a lot of questions. I mean, I find these things and I say, oh, who is doing this? What is this? And of course, there is no Google that you can say and you get the answer. So it boils down to ask the intelligent questions. The more questions you have, the closer you come to the truth, eventually. So where are they sagging us? Everywhere. This is America, this is Geneva, and this is also America, and here we have Saudi Arabia. And this is Lisbon, UK, Europe, and Belgium and Holland. All NASA photos. When are they doing it? Well, day and night. There's that church again. Full moon, and you can see them. They are not chemtrailing, apparently, in China, Costa Rica, and Paraguay. Didn't Geordie Boy buy a farm in Paraguay recently? Bushy Boy? Yeah. So he must know something we don't. Global warming, I call it global dimming, the chemtrail thing, or global weirding. And what does it mean when we have no sunlight? There is no photosynthesis. There is no vitamin D. And there is no immune system. We, as living beings on the Earth, all need full spectrum sunlight for different things. If we don't have the vitamin D3, we fall ill, we can't fight cancer, that sort of thing. That's why they tell you to put sunscreen on your skin, because the sunscreen is carcinogenic in itself, and it cuts off the skin from direct contact with the sun, so you can't even make vitamin D3. Aren't they clever, our doctors? And, well, of course, sunlight has been used for ages to disinfect things. And the photosynthesis in plants and food crops. And, of course, it's an alternate energy source, which we have lost already for 60%, as Dane Wigington told us. Ultraviolet light, a part of sunlight, is also very important, and these are physical processes for which we need ultraviolet light. It helps our metabolism, it keeps our blood pressure down, it helps us with our sex hormones, it has a better heart efficiency. And I'm talking also about the other heart energy here. Natural vitamin D3 production, calcium absorption. You can treat psoriasis, that is the skin disease. People with asthma can breathe more easily. It brings down the blood cholesterol, although that is a whole different lecture because the whole cholesterol story is not what you're being told by your doctor. It helps with weight loss, and it does something good to your blood calcium. And vitamin D3 is not a vitamin, actually, it's a hormone. And it does a lot of things that are very important for our health. That is, it has to do with how our bone structure behaves and how our cells behave. In terms of cancer, vitamin D3 helps regulate the apoptosis, the programmed cell death. So everybody has cancer cells in his body, but our own system can take them down. But we need vitamin D3 to do the job, among other things. Our immune T cells, those are the Pac-Man cells that eat up our pathogens, they go up when we have vitamin D3. Our insulin production goes up, very important. There are so many diabetics here in the world, and one of the reasons we have so many diabetics is vaccines. So insulin production helped by vitamin D3 will help you to be easy on your insulin shots. And there is a connection with osteoporosis, of course, and it preserves muscle strength after exercise. And those are just a couple of examples. Chemtrail effects. We have aluminum in the chemtrails. And the aluminum in the chemtrails enhances the effects of HAARP. And HAARP is sending out extreme or extra low frequencies. And these frequencies work with or against or in or through our bodily systems. Because, as I said, we are electrical beings. That's why homeopathy works. It's frequency information. And so HAARP can change our thoughts and emotions and give us anxiety, inability to concentrate, and depression. Barium is also very nice stuff that helps to steer the jet stream, which is interesting. You can manipulate the weather and the climate. But barium makes us more vulnerable for X-band radar. And also barium takes potassium out of the human organism, and we have in our cells this sodium-potassium pump to bring stuff in and out of the cell. So if that's out of whack, you see what will happen. You will be less healthy than you could be. And because there's less potassium, you have more risk on muscle weakness and heart defibrillation. And then there's another thing, the magnesium that you get, not too much from your food, but because in the soil there's not so much magnesium here. But any magnesium that is in your body can bind to the aluminum and give blood clotting. There are many, many people on blood thinners, warfarin, Coumadin. But what they do is calcify the arteries and erase short-term memory. So the minions can do whatever they do over and over and over again as long as you are on warfarin and Coumadin. And the barium and aluminum together, they work to diffuse and strengthen an electrical charge. And since, again, we are electrical beings, there is an effect bodily and in our minds as well. This is an X-band radar, and it's being put on a ship as a... they took it out of Texas days before Katrina. Interesting. It scans the system for barium. You light up, sort of. And this is HAARP, and that has the ELF. And the chemtrails have the aluminum and the barium. So basically, the aluminum in your system has made you into an antenna. So now you are a perfect component for these two systems to work against you. This is the Illuminati wet dream, I guess. Here is a little thing about the layers in the atmosphere. The numbers here, 70 to 51 and 0 to 17, those are the layers where chemtrails and contrails are. Chemtrail content. Look, the same church again. Chemtrails above it. This is Dane Wigginton with his sun panels that take 60% less sun power these days. And he speaks about particles being put up at these heights of 23 to 27 kilometers, and they spread out in a laminar pattern, and they take 2.5 to 4 years to fall back to Earth. And Bill Deagle says, one time he says barium is 10,000 times more toxic than lead, and at other times he has an even higher number. So I don't know which is which, but 10 times is enough for me. It's plainly too much. And aluminum is killing these ecosystems, as we know now since this morning. And then I found some different sources explaining what they have found in their testing of materials that come from chemtrails. And of course, there's the barium and the chaff, and the thorium and the cadmium, and desiccated blood and plasma cells, mold, spores, yellow fungal mycotoxins. And there is one mycotoxin that has a link with Gulf War syndrome, and that is mycoplasma incognitus, and it's patented by the US government. I have the patent right there on my laptop. Polymer fibers and ethylene dibromide. And this is Glenn Boyle. He finds exotic strains of bacteria, conductive metals, blood cells, carbon powders, sedatives, nanoparticulates, crystalline substances, alumina particulates, barium powders, polyethylene silicon fibers, and modified molds again. And this is several authors who mention what they find. And these are the toxic limits. How much over the toxic limits tests in Phoenix showed what's in the air. Amazing. 28,000 times more iron, 64,000 more aluminum. These are crazy numbers. Toxic metals. And I go through the metals that I just mentioned, and you can read for yourself. I mean, somewhere this presentation will be recorded, so you don't try to write it down, because I'm not going to read it either, all of it, but just, if it's on DVD, just put the DVD on hold to read it. The important thing with aluminum is that it's an electroactive substance. That means that it changes the polarity in our cells and bodies, and there is a big danger, because amino acids and proteins will fold in a different way. So they will have a different effect in the body. And again, all these substances are on top of what is already in our system through vaccines and medications and this and that and the other, food. And I have the number of how much more it is apparent in the Phoenix air test. I put these numbers again with the metal. We have barium here. It gives breathing difficulties, blood pressure problems, kidney and heart damage, and there is a link with MS, multiple sclerosis. And it's 278 times above the limit. Cadmium gives a lot of awful things, but also reproductive failure and possibly infertility. And there is basically three things that I find all over the place when I'm researching vaccines or medicines or whatever, and they are trying to make us stupid, they are trying to make us sick, and they are trying to make us infertile. Those three things are always the things that I find. Nickel doesn't make you very happy either. 169 times above the limit. Chromium, very important in diabetes, in the blood sugar thing, but then in a different way, in a different sense than as a metal like this, of course. Thorium, Breathing in a massive amount is lethal. And then we go to the non-metal toxins, ethylene dibromide. You get depression and collapse, or even death if you inhale too much of it. And again, damage to sperm cells in the testicles. And then we go to the mycotoxins of fungi and molds. And the most common ones are Aspergillus, Penicillium, and Fusarium. And they have estrogenic effects, and they can give you cancer, and they can change your genetic makeup. It's nice stuff. These molds and toxins give toxic syndromes in all mammals and humans. And an interesting point that Bill Deagle again made was that the H5N1 cases in China in 2007 were found exactly beneath the flight paths of British Airways jets. Interesting. This was a beautiful day. Air pollutants modifying human health. It's very dangerous stuff. Inhalation of some particulates can cause some genes to become reprogrammed, affecting the development and outcome of cancers. 85% of biowar research has been on mycobacteria and fungi, and they have also these particulates that they spread, these spores like that. Interesting drinking with this thing. The EPA says completely liquid aerosols or solids suspended in liquid mixtures. And then the American Cancer Society has this little picture, and in another scientific article I found that particles in the human body are worse than asbestos, worse than the people who got these lungs full of asbestos. And putting nanoparticulates in the upper atmosphere to geoengineer the climate means that you are creating ecological collapse, massive famine due to low harvest, damage to human beings and all forms of life, whether it's vertebrates, invertebrates, or amphibians. And there is nanoparticles in the brain, an article in Nature. Nanoparticles, tiny lumps of matter that could one day be used to build faster computer circuits and improve drug delivery systems, can travel to the brain after being inhaled. So now we know where they're going. And this is some of the literature, and the last one is a recent article from a study in China where there was people working in a workplace where nanoparticles were swarming around, and they fell ill, all of them. This is another illustration. I'll leave it for a while so everybody can wake up again. Chemtrail effects on humans. There is a worldwide scenario. It's all over the place, but it differs from place to place what exactly is going on. But we see heavy metal poisoning, sinus infections, pneumonia, immune deficiencies, cancer, effect in the mind. People report a metallic taste. Sometimes when I come home late at night and I step out of my car, I smell this smell, and it's between chemical and plain dirt, like the toilets here are smelling sort of now, because they broke down. But it's a very peculiar smell, and I recognize it anywhere. And sometimes even when I'm driving, I think, uh-oh, and then I can smell it because the air comes into my car. And yes, then we come to a very important thing, and that's Morgellons. And I'll talk more about that. Morgellons, chemtrails and Morgellons disease, are they a connection? Well, yes. Imagine having these things in your body. And these things are not of this world, in the sense that specifically that one is not a form of science that we can do. It's hundreds of years ahead of what we can do. And there is a good definition of Morgellons disease. It's a scalar, silicon-based nanomachine life forms that can change the biology of those on Earth. And this is what people found. The left one is a microscopic photo of what they found in rainwater. And the black things are part of the fiber that they found. And some fibers you can fish it out of your body. It's very painful, by the way, I understood. And this is what your foot can look like if you are infected by Morgellons disease. It's basically the next box of Pandora. Scientists, and this is an article that I just found, scientists train synthetic polymer molecules to self-assemble into long multi-compartment cylinders 1,000 times thinner than a human hair. That's what scientists are doing now in laboratories. And I leave it to your imagination. This is their picture, and this is a picture from the Morgellons fibers that have been found in people's bodies. Mark Dara research. And Dr. Hildegard Steininger has really found that what we find as chemtrail fibers are the same as Morgellons fibers. And she has this long definition about Morgellons. It's a communicable nanotechnology invasion of human tissues in the form of self-assembling, self-replicating nanotubes, nanowires, nanoarrays with sensors and other nano configurations, some carrying genetically altered and spliced DNA and RNA. And these nanomachines thrive in extreme alkaline pH conditions and use the body's bioelectric energy and other unidentified elements for power. And what people with Morgellons disease report is that they feel as if their soul has been taken over. They feel these entities crawling under their skins, and it's very painful, and you can't do one thing about it, it seems. And the symptoms are horrible skin problems. You saw the last picture with the hand, with all these things. Fatigue, confusion, serious memory problems, joint pain, and very strange sensations, pins and needles, and fiber-like entities crawling under the skin. And Mark Dara did some very interesting research with spectrography. These are the things that he found, different elements in Morgellons specimens. And he put spectrography to that to see what the materials exactly, what are they? And he finds all sorts of strange answers. And the things that they find in Morgellons are ribbon-like filaments, rounded smooth filaments in single strands or loosely interwoven balls, capsule-like structures, starfish-shaped particles, worm-like tubes, and black irregular edged flakes. Imagine having that garbage in your body. So Hildegard Steininger, she is a how you say that, a naturopathic doctor, but also a toxicologist in environmental issues. And she says these are nano-robotic assemblers. They replicate from the inside out. So from the digestive system and the renal system, they travel to the skin. And it's a composition of chemtrail fibers that matches exactly on what they find on Morgellons patients. And by this time, some 60,000 plus American families are infected. And the red areas and the orange areas are the areas where there are the most patients. But I heard already that the 60,000 is already an obsolete number. Gwen Scott is a naturopathic doctor. Heavy metals, biological pathogens, fibers, polymers, and other dangerous materials are being sprayed every day all around the planet. The materials are fine particulates and are easily breathed in. So it sounds as if there is no escape. And once in the body, and that is very important, they become systemic, meaning all through the body in less than a minute. So then we come to animals, plants and trees. I mean, Morgellons fibers, they must be also in plants and animals, but I have no reports of that yet. Aluminum and fish. What aluminum will do to fish is that it will impair their ion regulation at the gill. So they can't breathe, they don't get oxygen. So the fish mortality goes up and the growth goes down and the reproductive potential goes down, and they have, because of the high acidity and high aluminum content of where they live, they have less food. So they're basically dying out, and that's what Dane Wigington really was saying also on the film. And then here we have frogs that are falling victim to a fungus. And it spreads like wildfire everywhere. About frogs, there is this Walt Disney film about the Princess and the Frog, I think. In America, there started a whole hype that little girls wanted to have their own little frog prince to kiss. Frogs are the best way to get infected with what's the name of it? The food poisoning, salmonella. So they're teaching little girls to kiss frogs. Great, lovely. And this was just now in Greece, where millions of frogs left a lake and went over a highway. So they had to close the highway because these poor frogs were being run over. And the explanation that was given is that the frogs were looking for food elsewhere. I don't know whether that is true. I didn't hear further about it, but it's a sign of, I don't know yet what, but it's a sign. Aluminum and plants. If you put aluminum oxide nanoparticles in groundwater, then you inhibit the growth of corn, cucumber, cabbage, carrots, and soybeans. For instance, this is what they tested. But I guess that you can put any vegetable there and it will be impaired as well. And the smaller the nanoparticle, the greater the effect. And ecosystems are being targeted by aluminum toxins, and then you get in areas with trees, you get a death of elements that that work together with each other in synergy to keep the trees healthy. If they die, then you have the domino effect. So if these entities aren't there anymore, then the trees die. So when you have a forest fire, it will be a firestorm because it will be dry and dead wood. And aluminum will take care of the die-off of essential microbes, and it changes the soil pH. So on top of that, geoengineering various type of fungal forms is, I don't know, that is what happens, but these fungal forms and microtoxins are toxic to every living thing, including us. And this is telltale signs on trees. You see the webbing there, the dying of the trees, and there the white first 2 meters on a tree. What that is, I don't know. It might be a fungus or something, I don't know. But it's not a healthy sign anyway. And these are pictures that I got from Geert Top. Where is he? Up there. These are pictures from Belgium. This is the difference between October 2005 and September 2009, and you can see the trees didn't grow very much. And they lose their green very early because it's September. And this is the same trees in 2007 and 2009. And I must say, I pass trees like these in my area, and they are totally brown. And this is August 2005, and then this happens, and then the area looks like this. in March 2010. And then we have the bats. Right off with the bats. They are exiting this world because, and they are very important. We might not like them very much, but they take care of hundreds of insects every night. So they keep our environment healthy. And what happens is the white nose syndrome, and it's caused again by a fungus. And every one of these bats with this white nose, they won't be here next week or next year. And here you see a close-up. And then, very important, the bees. And we have this new world word. It's a vomit word, basically. Colony collapse disorder. Because what it means is that bees are dying. And why they are dying, there are a number of reasons. Chemtrails is one of them, most probably. But also, bees use the sun as a compass. So with no sun there anymore, they have difficulty coming home again, or telling each other with their dance, here is the honey, or there is the honey, and they die. And in the United States, more than 35% of the population of the western honeybee flew out and never came home. So they are not to be found dead in their place of living, but they're just not there anymore. So what's that? Is that the electromagnetic frequency disturbances? Could be. I don't know. But there's several reasons. But bees are very important. Einstein said, if the bee disappeared off the surface of the globe, then man would have only 4 years of life left. Because no more bees, no more plants, no more animals, no more man. No more pollination, I forgot that. No. That's the key word, of course. So I was just testing you. pH changes. A good example of what a pH change can do in a simple and non-aggressive way is with hortensia. pH below 5.5, you have them in blue, and above 5.5, they become this color. Global effects of chemtrails is that the atmosphere has been changed into a plasma state, which is electrified gas. So you can, it's an atmospheric conductivity, you can send signals through that plasma to wherever you want. And electromagnetic frequencies are detrimental to human physical and emotional health. Again, you get anxiety, you get depression, you get loss of concentration. The most simple solution would be, in my book, what do you think? How can we make that happen? How can we make that happen? And there are natural solutions. These are, I don't know the word in English, but they're making love. That's the important thing. Detoxing is very important, and now I'm talking about human health. Detoxing. Chembuster is not only this thing, but Chembuster is also a product that I found, a liquid homeopathic herbal remedy. Silica D30 homeopathic remedy will bring to the surface all strange bodies that are in your body. So maybe they work with nanoparticles, I hope so, I'm not sure, I'm just giving it as an idea. We have to research this more thoroughly. Extra potassium is important because the barium will deplete that from our system. Krill oil, which is a form of omega-3 oil, will help excrete aluminum through the hair. That's a way of getting rid of aluminum. And bentonite is a sort of healing earth that attracts heavy metals, and you excrete it via the colon. You can drink, you make these clay drinks and drink it. Colloidal silver can do a lot of things. More ideas are here. Detoxing with chlorella, spirulina, or green magma, which is the wheatgrass product. Garlic is good against, vampires. But it will take care of a lot of pathogens also, parasites. Shiitake, mushroom. Ginkgo biloba, tea tree oil. Cilantro, or we say coriander. It's a slower process, but that will bring metals out of your body also. Ginger is a very good fresh ginger. Evening primrose oil, omega-3 oils, klapmas, kombucha, the tea that you make from a fungus. That's a good fungus, because there are good fungi and bad fungi, like good people and bad people. And we are all good people here. Milk thistle will help you get rid of stuff and reinforce your liver. Vegetable juices will alkalize your body. Avocados will help getting rid of toxins. And drink lots and lots of clear but vital water. Tap water is dead. You de-energize your body when you drink tap water. But that's another lecture. Maybe I can come back someday. This is the Chembuster. We had a whole speech about that, so we know. And I made here a list of interesting websites. Don't try to write them down, because you're not going to be able to. And that was it.
That was awesome.
As always, very enlightening, very clear. It doesn't make us happy.
No.
But we knew that when we came here there was a risk.
Especially when you invite me, yeah.
But I think we learned a lot today from Desiree once more. I ask you again to give her a warm applause.